as we get started, brief introduction. Would you share with everybody how you became the Joey Oberndorfer that we know in real estate? Where were you before, and how's your journey been so far?
Oh gosh. Well, my journey has been amazing, especially with EXP, but I've only been in real estate for about 9 months now, but I just closed my 32nd transaction in 9 months. So things have been moving very quickly. I've never done real estate before. My dad did real estate in the 80s with Coldwell Banker, learned a lot from him. But before this, I was in corporate America and I had understood investments in real estate and been around it my whole life and said, you know what? I'd love to get into this. And then I did, and things have just taken off since I've been in Georgia here for the past 3 years. But in real estate in the past 9 months has been really trial by fire. But I'm glad I'm learning a lot of things sooner than later.
Well, that's quite the fire you've created too. 32 deals in 9 months is not normal. In case nobody told you that.
I've
And it's a very good bazaar, by the way. That's the right kind of bazaar to be. And our mutual friend Ian was bragging about you when we met up at the Atlanta rally. So I'm curious, when you got into it, was there something in your background that gave you a head start you said you were in corporate America? Did that translate at all? Or was there just something that you did that you don't see a lot of your peers doing that you think's made the difference?
Absolutely. And when you talk to other realtors, everybody has their own style. I mean, it's the same goal and progression, but everybody has their own script, if you will, tweaked to their own way. And I think when I was in corporate America, I was the director of business development, and my job was to be a liaison between companies that gave us referrals for clients that we would serve in the healthcare space. So being able to communicate not only to multiple parties at once, but make sure being the liaison really did translate into real estate. It's punctuality, timely responses, accurate responses, politically correct responses, and making sure that I'm responding and not reacting to things. I think that's the biggest thing too, and it translates into real estate. If I have a listing and I get a lowball offer, I'm going to manage those expectations for a response, not a reaction. So that way I can achieve the common goal.
Okay. And so I'm curious, can you maybe take it from the ground floor up? How do you go generate the amount of leads that it takes to close 30 some odd transactions in 9 months? What's your bent in terms of lead funnels?
Absolutely. So I have been super fortunate enough to be a part of the Dreammaker team here, the Zillow Dreammaker team with Harriet Hinson as the team lead. I actually got into real estate while I was in Georgia and randomly ran into my EXP buddy, Austin Luchard, who I played college football with in South Dakota. And he was at a table next to me and we connected and he said, hey, join this team, join this brokerage. It's amazing. And he was 100% right. So being on this Zillow Flex team, we get leads into our database that are real-time tour requests or real-time phone calls that allow us to generate clients and be able to make transactions.
Okay. And now, candidly, I think some people who just hear that go, oh, wow, yeah, he's got Zillow Flex leads. But if you're not familiar, I got to tell you, conversion of Zillow Flex leads is not a walk in the park.
No.
And has that been your experience as well?
Oh my gosh. I have heard the same thing and I've heard you're lucky, this and that. And it's like, maybe some of it, but I think it's consistency, but 100%. I get the same type of clients or leads that everybody else does. The person who just wants to look at 100 homes or the person that wants to look in a price bracket that's not, within their range. And it really has been a consistency, I think, behind closed doors that only realtors or maybe most people who have gone through the amount of grind that I feel like I have in this short amount of time would understand. And to your point, it's things like I've worked with clients for 6 months, helping them with their credit, with getting them approved with lenders, their debt, making sure that we are doing everything right within their finances to the time that they're ready to go, helping people get out of certain situations, finding them resources, continuously sticking with them. It has been, and not every lead I get is like, hey, let's go see this home, we're going to buy it. Great. It is consistently trying to manage those expectations and starting from start and trying to make it to the finish.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go through that process then. And so let's start by saying, I'm assuming Zillow Flex, we're talking about majority buyers here. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're absolutely correct. So, yeah, I mean, unless it's a buyer that needs to sell before they buy situation, but 99.9% of the time it is active buyers.
Active buyers, and they are putting you in a competitive situation, right? With these leads, and on your team, and also through Zillow, they're probably clicking around on a bunch of different listings while they're on there. So, tell me about how that lead comes in, and what do you do when it does?
Absolutely. So most of the time when a lead comes in, it's a real-time tour saying this person wants to see 123 Main Street at 3 p.m. today. Can you accept this tour? You essentially say yes. You take on that tour, and then it sends their information to you. You have to follow up with them, whether it be a phone call or a text message, to confirm that property they want to see. What's their, motivation in wanting to see it, finding out about them. And then you have to go through the whole National Association of Realtors, required documentation, liability, legal agreement, just to be able to enter the property. And then make that appointment, you go over that, in best case scenarios, they sign to be able to see that, whether that's a touring agreement or a single buyer brokerage agreement. You meet them at the home, and then you quickly try to continue your rapport for them. What are their needs? What are they actually looking for? Are they first time home buyer? Are they second time home buyer, investor? So then it kind of graduates from there.
And for those not familiar with Zillow Flex leads and how they come in, is this a warm handoff from an ISA there, or are they just sending you the information saying, give this person a call? Do they even know who Joey is at this point?
Yeah, great question. And so what it is when you see on Zillow and you say, I want to tour this property, what it is it goes to agents in certain zip codes. If you're in that zip code and you're up on the lead board to get a lead within a certain amount of time, you'll get that lead. It comes into you, and the consumer on the other side it'll say, hey, you've just connected with your real estate agent, Joey Oberndorfer. Please confirm the tour with him. And that's all they get. They get your name and that you're associated Zillow and that they're going to contact you and you're a realtor. They don't really know much unless they're fully integrated into the process, kind of how we're talking about, any more information than that. So you're basically just going off of, a blank foundation to be able to connect with them. And they're doing the same when you're reaching out to them.
Okay. And curious, because I've seen agents do it a bunch of different ways. Do you do just the straight call? I'm calling them. Do you send a quick text? Hey, it's Joey. I'm about to call you. How do you go about it?
Yeah, so great question. And this is so funny because we had this conversation the other day. Like a lot of people only text, or some people only call. And again, I think it just goes into your script. I call every single time, or try to, unless they send me a text or a message to the app that says, hey, confirming our appointment, can only text. But I call because I want them to hear me. I want them to know who they're speaking with. I want them to try to put a face, to the voice and then to the name. But I really want them to hear my passion for real estate and for their needs. So I love to connect with people over the phone initially and then go from there.
Okay. And I'm going to talk through that call, but before I do, there's a percentage there that does not pick up the phone. What do you do about those?
So for just Zillow Flex leads, let's just say you don't pick up the phone, it just goes to another team member. You just get passed. It gets passed over you to somebody else.
Okay. And so for the ones that do pick up the phone, then how's that conversation typically go? I know a lot's going to vary by individual, but by and large, what's that conversation like?
Right. So in speaking, just to differentiate, so in what's called a real-time tour, you get a phone call that you have a lead, and then it gives you the details and the call ends. And then it's your job to call that person, or there's a opportunity to connect to a live buyer. When you connect to a live buyer, that person's on the phone in real time. So there's two separate scenarios. One, with the live buyer, you have to be thinking on your feet. You have to see the address right there on your phone. Say, hey, I see you're interested in this address. Tell me about it. What are your interests in it? What attracted you to it? But the other one, you have a little bit of opportunity, usually I like to call within the first 20 minutes. So I like to look at the property. I like to look it up on FMLS, Zillow, look in the private remarks, see the comps. I like to get all that information just so I'm prepared for making that initial phone call to the person.
Got it. And then when you do, is it basically get out of the way guy. I just want to see the house. How is that typical conversation going?
I'm not sure some do. No, when I call, I say, hey, I see you're interested in 123 Main Street. What attracted you to this property? I want to know. Is it the school district? Is it the size? Is it the investment opportunity? Who am I dealing with? What kind of buyer are you? Great. Is this, your first home? Tell me about you. What do you do for work? I really genuinely want to know. I want to turn that lead into a client, into a friend, because I want them to know that they can trust me. I have their best interest at heart. And the more information that I know, the better that I can do for their investment. It's a huge investment, and I want to make sure they're taken care of.
Yeah, and what you're doing is needs analysis over the phone, trying to get to know them and all. There's a fine line between getting what you need and maybe going too far in that and having them be like, oh, ick, he's asking too many questions, where for you is that line? What are you looking for out of that conversation? And when do you know, okay, I got what I need. I need to just bring it to the real world.
You know what? That's such a great observation. And I think it's just more being situationally aware. And it's really feeding off of that person's tone. If they're more of a serious, relaxed tone, more straight to business type, then I will shift the gear, right? I come in really high energy. I'm enthusiastic about showing this home. But if I've had individuals who are very straight down to business, okay. And I match them at their level for what they're doing. And I think to your point, it's okay, based on their answers and their level of criteria that they're giving me and the responses they're giving me, here's how I need to gauge this. And then I get what they need. And it sounds like they just want to know, what do I need? How can I get there? What time? Great. See you then. But other than that, I've carried on hour conversations with a first time call lead where, oh, my kids, or we're at baseball, or we're in sports, or my husband. And I love hearing all of that. But I think to your point, it's really just gauging the other person's momentum on the other side. Sometimes I do try to, if it's a little bit short, get a little bit more of a reaction out of them. If I can make you laugh, if I can make you loosen up a little bit, I think I try that a little bit. And then we do reach a certain point where it's like, okay, I understand. Maybe you're busy. Maybe you have something going on. Well, here's what we have. See you then.
Okay. And are you following a script framework like LP Mama or ALM or your own framework?
Yeah, no, so great point. It's ALM. And a lot of people, I used to create scripts in the corporate world as director of business development. I was in the intake department, and I would write scripts for my intake coordinators to follow to get the result that we needed or the information that was necessary. So appointment, location, motivation is the easiest, I feel like, way to at least get out points of people talking, but to get an amount of information that will at least help you in meeting them.
Yeah. It's funny. I jokingly refer to it now as ALMA or ALMC, whichever you want to call the buyer consultation or the buyer appointment, because now we got to deal with that form. Now we got to, and so question for you, are you using a single property tour form? Or are you going straight for the full buyer rep? How do you like to handle that?
You know what? I have never used a touring agreement. I always use the single buyer brokerage agreement. Personally, for me, I feel like within the conversation and the type of investment that is being made, but the knowledge, skills, and abilities that I feel personally just to me, and we've talked about this as teams, other agents are comfortable doing other things. Go for it. That is it. If that works for you, don't change it. But for me personally, I like the single buyer brokerage agreement because it ensures that my time is being valued just as much as I'm valuing that person's time to take time out of my day to meet them and really express my criteria and opportunity to them of making this financial investment and how I can best help them.
Okay. And so to my question about the ALMA or ALMC, however you want to call it, how does that go? And by the way, is that how you do it? Do you go appointment, location, motivation? And is it a Columbo moment of, oh, by the way, have you heard about this? How do you handle that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, go through the ALM and then filling in the gaps in between. And then I say, hey, the last thing we need to do is I just need to send a document for review and signature. The National Association of Realtors passed a law this past August that requires us to have a document reviewed and signed by a consumer or client like yourself and a realtor like myself to be able to legally enter a property. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it over. It has the address, the date, the time until we can see it, and then it goes over my compensation fee. I want to let you know that the buyer has always been responsible for the buyer's broker fee. However, none of my buyers have ever had to pay my compensation in the past 32 transactions that I've closed. I don't plan on starting today, and it is fully negotiable. However, I do try to negotiate with the seller for a 3%. In the first line, it does say that you're responsible, but 3 lines down, it says I negotiate with the seller, and that's what exactly I plan to do for you.
Okay, so you've got that form pretty well memorized, and you're kind of calling it out ahead of time because you know where the objections are coming. And like
Correct.
any good script artist, if you know where the objections are coming, handle them before they come. So I like that very much. Do you get much pushback at that point?
You know what? I have gotten pushback. Yeah, I've gotten equal amounts of pushback and equal amounts of acceptance.
Hmm.
For somebody who it's contingent, and that's such a fun question to think about when, again, I'm talking about it to my team or we have meetings and like, what do you say? What do you do? I get people who say, well, I don't want to sign anything. I say, look, I totally understand. I have had clients who feel the way you feel and have felt the way you felt about signing something. It seems very serious. But what I found is that once I send it to you and you review it, if you have any questions, don't sign it. I want you to call me. I want you to go over it. I'm going to send you an article about it online. If you still don't feel comfortable, I understand. But if you do ever want to see a home other than an open house, you will have to sign something with a realtor to be able to go inside. And those are just the rules in Georgia. And I have had run into people where I never hear from them again. And it happens. I can only put my best foot forward. But I would say about 80 to 85% of the time, I have no issue.
Okay. And I'm kind of curious too, because I know agents who they absolutely will not send it to the person ahead of time. They will, if the appointment is at 3, they know now that you're available at 3. And so, hey, we'll go see the home at 3:15, but there's a Starbucks right around the corner. I need to show you some documents before we get into the house and be required to get into the house. And that's how they go, right? I'm not signing or asking them to sign until I've had a chance to get face to face. And there's a security blanket feeling, I think, with that sort of thing. And obviously you're not doing it wrong. You're freaking killing it. So what do you say about that kind of philosophy? Why are you sending it versus trying to close to an in-person and then getting them to sign it there?
You know what? That is an amazing question. That's an amazing strategy. I personally have not heard of that strategy other than some agents who, when they get a tour request, it's within an hour and they just show up at the same, happen to be so close that they have to show up at the home at the same time. I haven't actually heard of anybody or have been told by any realtors that I know that they meet 15 minutes before. If that works for you, 100% keep doing it. And that goes to the kind of the point we were talking about earlier, is that if that has worked for you and you have success in that space, don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Do what works for you. So what has worked for me is that, and I just kind of keep going with that. But I think I'm going to add that to my tool belt in case I get hung up on something like, hey, if you don't want to sign it, would you rather us meet before? So I like that.
Yeah, and I know agents who do it at a coffee shop across the way or even on the driveway, but they are like afraid to send that form. But maybe they'll benefit from your scripting from this conversation.
I hope so. I hope the goal is to help whoever, whenever, however, and I know how hard it is in this industry and with the short time that I've been in, but I love seeing success for everyone else around me. So 100%.
Now, in the ALM, are you trying to get information to also pull other homes that we can go tour, or is the strategy we're going to extend out our relationship and I'm going to show you 3 maybe other properties since we're out? Or how do you approach it, or is it just the one and then we'll go from there?
Absolutely. So it's the one and we'll go from there. They pick that home for a reason. They want to see that home for a reason. Now, sometimes through those real-time tours, they have asked for other homes, 1, 2, or 2 or 3 more homes after the initial first one. So I may ask about those, but those are pretty rare situations. Most of the time, it is one single home. And when I discuss with other agents and they've asked the same thing, like, hey, do you try to put them onto something else? Well, I don't even know about this first home. We haven't even seen it. So I want to know why they want to take time out of their busy day, their busy schedule, and their precious time to go see this property. I'm fully engaged on that one property. And then we get there and we walk through and I figure out, is this the one for them? Do they just find it and that's it? And I want to say about 15 of my past 32 deals have been lead, single buyer brokerage, go see the home, offer acceptance.
Really? That home?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So that's half of them.
Yeah, just about half.
That's pretty incredible. So, is there something that you're doing in that conversation, in that tour, to build rapport, to stretch out the relationship, to bond, and then I'm curious, like, take me through that process, and then how are you closing for furtherance if it's not going to be an offer on that home?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, I meet at the home, I meet who I'm going on the tour with, and I like to open up the door and I say, look, I want you to just walk the home as if I'm not here. I'm going to hang out with you, tell me your likes and tell me your dislikes, and I hang back. I don't do the whole tour. I mean, again, everybody has their own flow and mode of talking and directing, but I like the client to take the lead in that mode, so they feel it's like a test drive, right? Like, just drive, just go, see what it's made of. So tour the home. Let me know if there's a giant hole in the wall. We're both going to see a giant hole in the wall. I don't need to point that out to you, right? So you know where the kitchen is, you know what a living room is, right? So and again, I don't fully know their ideas. I don't know if they're into DIY. I don't know if they are an investor and they didn't tell me. But once I start pointing out all the negative things, of course, as realtors, we love to point out what we know. And hey, I know this about that. I know this we can get this fixed. But the moment I start doing that, I've entered the home at a neutral level. So once I start pointing out negative things, I'm now creating negative points against the home. Well, why? How do I know that I'm not discouraging this investor who wants to fix it up? Now I'm making them second guess themselves. But originally, when they see that hole, they're like, oh, I can fix that. That's super easy. Great. Next. But now if I'm overemphasizing it, I'm making a problem larger than it needs to be. So I love to get their feedback first before I say anything. And then after they say, well, I saw this, what do you think about this? I give my opinion. I say, hey, well, look, the floor seems a little sunk. That could be to the crawl space. However, here's what we're looking at. Would that deter you from buying the home? Get a gauge, get a level for what their level A of seriousness is, and B, what their objections are. And if that's not the home for them, absolutely. Well, what did you like about this home? Is it 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 2 stories within, a certain area to a certain school? Great. Price range. How does that work for you? Great. 2-car garage. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get on my search right now. You do the same. Send me things that you see. I'm going to send you things that come up. Let's go see some more.
Okay. And and is that how you typically leave it? I mean, you said, almost half are going to buy that
Right.
house. So is there any sort of scripting that you might help people with in terms of creating that urgency?
So honestly, it's just, hey, what do you think about this home? And a lot of the homes that I've seen have been on the market, within the first day. And some of those have been multiple offer situations. So the urgency is already there, right? I mean, hey, if you like it, you're not going to be able to see it next week and it's probably going to be gone. I've already spoken to the agent, or I can already know, I can just tell by the market that, hey, this thing is going to go. But for ones that have been on the market, or what their needs are, and say, hey, does this fit your criteria? Is there anything we're missing? Well, if you were going to buy it for, if you're going to throw a price at it, out of curiosity, what would that be? And I say, if you got it for that price, would you want this home? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, hey, the worst that can happen is they say no. So I go through and see, does this fit their mold? Is this their criteria? Is this the best investment for their needs? And I put it in their plate. I don't oversell. I don't sell them anything other than what they have already been looking at and what they already know. I'm transparent. I set up realistic expectations for the home that we're seeing, but most of the time it's the client giving that answer for themselves to me to say, hey, yeah, you know what? I want this home. This is why I picked it.
Okay. And then from there, comps, and we'll go make an offer. For the ones who go, yeah, or do they say, yeah? Do they say, thanks, Joey, we'll think about it? What's your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, so I see what you're saying. Hey, how do I get a hold of them again? How do I have them come back out and re-engage me, right?
Well, what's that? So you're standing there at the property, or at the kitchen, front stoop, wherever, and you're asking them that question: could you see yourself here if you could get it for that price? And they're sending all the wrong signals, like this is not the property.
Right.
Do you find at that point you've built enough rapport to them that they're going to be honest, or do you find that they're going to give you a deflection? Say, yeah, let's think about it, and then so you need to go into script mode to kind of take the relationship to the next step.
Absolutely. So if there's a resistance, or hey, we're not sure, I don't know. Well, hey, what don't you like about the home? well, it's this, it's that. And okay, well, the only thing that we can't change about it is the location. Would you be open to changing, the kitchen? Would you be open to changing this? And so it's really contingent. It's fluid, right? You got to understand really what it is about it. Or are they just like, hey, we just don't want this home? Like, hey, I totally understand. Or if they say we need to think about it, great. Hey, look, just to set my expectations and be transparent, is there a certain timeline in which I should follow back up with you on when you think you've decided what your decision about this home is? So I try to put it back on them to tell me when an appropriate time to reach out is, so they know I'm going to follow up. And then in the meantime, I kind of say, hey, well, look, would you be open to looking at other homes, in the area or ones that may match your criteria, just to compare, just to make sure we're making the best decision for you? And that usually puts them into the mode of, yeah, okay, I'm comfortable. Let's go again.
I'm curious. So if they've asked for multiples, of course, you're going to do that, and you'll go see other homes and get to build more rapport. If they haven't, are you still pulling a list to have in your back pocket, or are you waiting until their decision on that home and then you're going to go do that?
So in the background, if they haven't mentioned, hey, I want to see other homes or we want to go see other things, I'm still doing my research. I'm not just dropping them off. I'm looking at comps. I'm thinking ahead. Okay, if they're making an offer, what am I making an offer for? Do we need seller's credits? I'm working the deal in my head as we've left this appointment. I'm thinking the next 5 steps ahead. In addition, I'm looking at homes around that if they're ready to say no, great. I found this one. I'm free. What's your schedule this week? So I'm ready for whatever answer they may have when they say it's appropriate for me to follow back up, just so I'm prepared for any movement they want to make.
Cool. And of the 60% or so that don't want that property, what's typical in terms of your conversion? Is it a series of outreach? A friend of mine who did 10 days of pain and things of that nature, just to kind of make sure that they didn't choose somebody else because of lack of communication. How do you approach it?
Oh, gosh, that is such a great question. I think there's just such a dynamic way to look at it. It's so contingent upon the person. It's just being aware of who are they, what's their schedule, how much can they talk to you. But I'm pretty consistent in my follow-up. And if I double text, I triple text. And if they don't get back to me and they say, hey, sorry, I've been busy, I let them know, hey, it's my responsibility to keep up with you, and it's your responsibility to handle life and get back to me when you can. Letting them know there's no pressure, but I'm thinking about you and your investment. With those people that say no and they want to go see other homes, it's pretty consistent because I'm not going to judge them for the decision. I like to make it as comfortable as possible, as enthusiastic as possible. And if they're saying something that is certainly agreeable and why they have an objection to the home, 100%, I'm not going to fight you on it. That's not an objection I need to fight you on. That's a absolutely 100%. Let's go see what else is out there. And it usually turns into what do you think about this home? They're sending me homes and I'll find a home. But again, it's reading the mood.
Okay. I'm curious, at what point, or do you go from single property buyer agreements to a full-on buyer rep agreement?
Great question. So usually if we see one property one day and then let's just say it's that single time and they say, hey, this isn't the one for me, but we're going to follow up. Great. We have a great follow-up. We see another property. This isn't the one. That's usually about after 2 properties is when I present that. And I say, hey, look, it looks like we're going to have to expand our home search and our criteria. And it looks like we're going to probably see more than one property after this. So what I'd like to do is enter into a more comprehensive agreement that allows me to inquire and see any home with you that you want. It's a blanketed agreement that allows me to do that, but we don't have to do this single property agreement every single time anymore. And it creates flexibility in what we're trying to do.
I like that. I like the benefits positioning of it too. That's very good. A lot of execution is in the nuance, and in what you've just shared, do you feel like there's nuances that I didn't ask you that are really important at any step in the way?
Gosh, and I'm only speaking from my own personal experience or experiences that I've heard from other realtors. And when people ask me, what do you do? What's your secret sauce? How do you do it? And I don't think I do anything or have any different, tools or resources than anybody else has, but it's really understanding your client's needs. And I think in real estate or realtors or as people, we want to for sure exude our knowledge, skills, and abilities. But I think at times we can talk our clients or buyers out of something that they may even want based on what we're saying. And we have to kind of sit back and remember, hey, this is not my personal property. This is not my investment, but this is something that I'm trying to make sure that my client and buyer understands what they're getting into. And as long as they know, and we've gone over it thoroughly, and they want to make this investment, then your job responsibility is to help them get that however you can.
Yeah. It's funny, and I understand the mentality behind bringing other properties to the table right from the get-go, right? Trying to show your value, that I'm not trying to sell you this one property. In fact, I've got others that I'm willing to do the work for you. And listening to you and hearing the percentage that actually just buy that property, it also occurs that you may just be shooting yourself in the foot and creating more, right? Because I mean, listen, if somebody's about to buy a car or get married to a person and you start putting other options in front of them, that is going to give them pause at least, right? They're going to start thinking, well, should I commit to this? What else should I explore? And I say marriage flippantly, right? But a house is a big decision, right? It is a big
100%.
decision to buy. And putting other options in front of people at the point where they might actually be ready to buy that house could be an issue. I'm curious your kind of thought process on the folks who do bring all those homes to the table to show value.
I feel like showing value is very objective, right? And so, if that, as a realtor, again, I think it goes back to our simple, if it works for you, don't change it. If that's what you feel like has worked for you and your clients, 100%. And I'm not encouraging anybody to, the first time they meet with a client, hey, you should definitely not bring anything else up, or you should for sure make sure they buy this home. It's, hey, this person, knows what they want. They know what they're looking for in terms of a home, but it is also our responsibility. And I don't want anybody to think that it's not, when I see things that I'm not like, hey, this home is attached to power lines, does that bother you? I make sure, and I'm very transparent, and I point out the things that may be a hazard. Maybe, hey, this home is in a flood zone. Did you happen to see that? I make sure they're aware, but at the end of the day, they are responsible in their decision. And again, it's not my investment, but it's my job. It's my responsibility to make sure they're aware of all those things. I don't say, great, you like this property, let's buy it, and not go over all the other things with them and not make sure that they understand what they know, that they're getting. And if they do, then I can comfortably say, okay, great, let's go forward with this.
Do you think in that initial call, are you asking questions to suss out how attached they are to this property? And is that then the trigger for asking, do you want to see? Because I think other agents, they go straight to, okay, great, I'll pull other homes for you to see based on what you just said, regardless of whether or not the person said anything or asked for it, right? They're just trying to broaden the relationship, broaden the time they have to build that rapport so that they can get, if the person does move on from that property, they can get a full-on buyer rep. Is there something that you do nuanced in that conversation that lets you know, now they're intent on this property, I'm not going to screw that up, or they sound a little iffy and maybe I should offer a couple other properties?
No, honestly, I don't pry. I don't try to find anything to use in association to them getting the property. It's, why do you like this property? Tell me about it. Tell me about you. Tell me about your home buying journey, or your first time home buyer. Tell me about your experience. And great, if this matches up, let's see what we can do for you. But it's just getting the foundation of facts to be able to get there and say, hey, look, here's what we can do. We can make this a reality. It looks like it checks all your criteria. What do you think about that? And keep in mind, more than likely, when someone's buying a home, they've probably been looking at Zillow, they've looked or other consumer marketing aspects and saying, hey, I've seen all these homes online, but this is the one I actually want to take time out of my day to go see. And so they've seen a lot of stuff online, and once they see it in person, it's, hey, does this fit your criteria? Is this checking all your boxes? Sometimes it's just that easy to say for the buyer, yeah, this is exactly what I thought it would be, and this is why I showed up. So I don't think it's anything less or more. It's really, is this the ideal property and investment for this person, and do they see themselves owning it?
Yeah, it's funny. You remind me of a friend of mine, Gene Fredericks. I think you probably know who he is. When he and I worked together in a former life, and he was a recruiter. He was an office recruiter for one of the branches of that company. And Gene was famous for walking out to the lobby of a recruiting appointment, somebody who he'd asked to come by, talk about maybe joining that company. And he would ask them right then and there in the lobby, hey, is there anything holding you back from joining today? And if they said no, he would go, all right, great, let's go sign paperwork. Let me introduce you. And for a lot of the recruiters in that company, they heard that. They were like, wait, you can do that? It just never occurred. They felt like, no, I gotta take him back. I gotta do the whole spiel. And and I had another friend who the mastermind top team leaders, he said, yeah, so I just had the sellers come to my office and do listing presentation there. And they were like, well, when do you go see the house? He's like, oh no, I don't go to the house. And everybody in the mastermind was like, wait, you could do that? It just kind of challenges the sort of norm of the situation. But when you really think about it, it's a very smart approach. You're not negotiating against yourself at that point. So well done, man.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's my goal isn't to make the transaction and move on. My goal is to fulfill this person's needs for the investment. Is this what they're looking for? Does this match their criteria? If we saw this home in the fourth home that we saw, out of 4 homes, and they bought it, what's the difference of them seeing it for the, first, other than, okay, they haven't physically stepped into other homes. If it checks all the boxes, why not?
Yeah. And I think that's a very client first approach. And I like it very much. Thank you for doing this, man. We really appreciate it. This has been a fun conversation.
Absolutely.